Welcome to Think, React, Lead, bringing you insights and strategies for thinking as an executive, reacting like a soldier, and leading in all aspects of your life. Here's your host, executive coach and leadership speaker, Dom Faussette.
Hey, welcome to the Think, React, Lead podcast, where you will be provided insights on thinking as an executive, reacting like a soldier, and leading in various aspects of your career and personal life. My name is Dom Faussette, and today we are going to talk about, is it really too much on your plate? And we're talking about the mindset of being overwhelmed. It's not even a mindset. It's people just say they're overwhelmed and they truly believe that they're overwhelmed. Let me ask you this. Are you overwhelmed or are you underperformed? And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I hear a lot of people say, and I've said this myself, I'm overwhelmed. But if you think about it, history will dictate as it relates to you as an individual, what you need to do in the moment so that when the time comes, you're prepared. In the military, we kind of call this a 4 count or even command presence. But look at a baby. A baby starts walking or they start crawling first. If you were to try to take a crawling baby and make them walk in the grocery store, like it's not going to happen. But what are they doing day in and day out is they are, or you as a parent are helping them build that endurance, build their 4 count. Today we walk a couple times throughout the day, or today we crawl a couple times throughout the day. We will try to walk. Or even bring it back to, say, the automotive industry, which most people here know that I love bikes. I love motorcycles specifically. When you buy a stock bike, it performs the way it's meant to perform. But the moment you buy it, they tell you that there's a break-in period, right? And this is the period where when you break in an automobile, or you specific to a motorcycle, a sports bike, you kind of gun the bike. Like you take your RPMs as high as they could possibly go. And you do this within the first, I'd say 600 miles. And there's spurts that you do this in. So you start the bike, you hop on, and you shift and shift and shift until you get to the top gear. Typically this is done on a dyno, but you can do it on the street. So you have it in a lower gear, and it's called pinging the needle. So you have 0 RPM and you bring it all the way over to until it can't go any further. But that preps the bike for higher speeds down the road. Now let's just kind of bring this back into our life. We do this thing, and I'm guilty of, or I have been guilty of it, where I would come home right after a long day of work when I was in the corporate sector, and I would just sit down and watch TV. Knowing there were things that I needed to do, right? Like I needed to probably get the lawn done, or I needed to work on my business, or start adding some more chapters to my book, or do a podcast. But I felt that, I'm just going to be tired. Another way to look at this is most of us have ran at least once in our life. For many of us, we ran and we said, you know what? Nope, this sucks. I'm not doing it again. But the concept doesn't change. The concept is, if you run a mile today and then run a mile and 100 yards tomorrow and a mile and 200 yards the next day, eventually you'll get to 2 miles. But if you just woke up today and you're not a runner and you just jumped out to go do 2 miles, you might not want to do that, right? Why? Because it's just a sad feeling. You're halfway into the run. You're like, you know what? I don't really need to do this. It's not that serious. Well, whether in business or maybe even relationships, so not maybe our home relationships, but maybe relationships in the business world. One thing I had to start doing, which it was very hard for me to do, was be overtly nice to people. And I'm not talking about like people that are listening to this. I'm talking about being overtly nice to people that stab you in the back. Being overtly nice to people that talk about your spouse, right? Or being overtly nice to a family member that you just can't find a way to like them. the way, now this may have just worked for me, but what I had to do was I had to really find one thing that I liked about them. And every time I saw them, whoever the them was or is, I would just put myself in a mindset of they're awesome at, and it could be something just completely stupid. Like they're awesome at making brownies. And that's it. And we all know that the moment you try to go change your mind, you do this thing, you go in like, I'm going to be nice. I'm just going to do the right thing. And I'm going to focus on the fact that they make great brownies. And the first words out of their mouth is, oh, you've gained weight. Or, oh, I saw that thing that you did and I don't really like, they're very opinionated. But and I've been doing this for about a year now. It's still not easy. Hindsight, I've come to learn that the nicer I am, the more open these individuals are to me, which is a beautiful thing. And I've also come to realize that it's hurt that causes them to be this way. Now let's swing the pendulum back over to the business sector or whatever it is that you do as it relates to monetizing your world. It could be in the corporate sector or your W-2, you may be 1099, or you're an entrepreneur like myself. One thing I don't like doing is working on the back end of my business. Like it's a lot of work. But over the last 2 weeks, I've worked on the back end of my business. And let me explain to you what the back end of my business is, right? Instead of, say, using a Square Reader for payment or Square Cash or any of the little apps that are provided for payment, I knew that in order for me to grow as a business, I would have had to bring on board or hire an actual company that is strictly dedicated to processing payments. Now, I found out that there's a lot of underwriting process that goes with that. It's taken me 3 weeks to get to where I'm at now. But in the long run, it makes things easier for me. And there's a lot of paperwork that's involved with that, right? What are some other things? Traveling to places to speak that don't really benefit me in the moment, but are changing my mindset to, you know what? I'm not overwhelmed. I'm going to find one reason that I like to do this, which in this case, it was changing one person's life, right? So my question for you, I'm not going to make any suggestions, but this is just a question for you. What is the one thing that you could be doing maybe this weekend, or even today, because the day is still young, where you can ask yourself, what can I do next? Right? That's something that I started doing with myself over the last, probably the last 7 to 10 days. You know what? Honestly, it started when I changed my workout. And yes, if you saw the last post, my wife noticed my gains, as minimal as they might be. The fact that my spouse says, honey, I see your gains. Like right now, I feel like I can move a mountain. I'm so stoked right now. My next workout is going to be legit. I'm actually going to do legs. I hate doing legs, but summertime, so we have to do them. But I digress. What was I saying? I was talking about the back end of your business. What can I do next? Every day, I take a break, typically around lunch, and I stop towards the end of the day. But before I shut my laptop down, I ask myself out loud, all right, Dom, what can you do next? And the first thing that comes into my head is what I do. I did this on Monday, and the what can I do next answer was write a magazine article. So I did that. I don't like writing. Unfortunately, it's part of what I have to do. But then I stopped telling myself I don't like writing. And the 2 articles that I put together, I was actually proud of them, believe it or not. Then I had to do what's called a writer's vision. Again, this is writing. And as I did a writer's vision for a documentary, a video documentary that I'm working on, it made me realize this. Opportunities, they say opportunities do not fall in your lap. And I believe that's wrong. Opportunities fall in your lap. The results from the opportunity don't fall into your lap. For example, I had the opportunity to, again, do this documentary. Well, in order for me to get it going, I had 48 hours to get to California. And if anybody knows, buying a plane ticket 48 hours, like outside of the date that you're about to travel, it gets very expensive. So I just hopped on my bike, disregarded, hopped in my truck and drove out there for a meeting for 2 hours. That for me in my mind was, what can you do next? And what can you do better, right? There's a phrase that I like to use specific to me, and it's be the obvious choice. What does the obvious choice look like? I had a recent opportunity to speak in either Florida or Shreveport. It's not till the end of the year, but the opportunity came by way of a connection that I had. But I could also bring in 3 to 4 other speakers, which was great. I have a pretty good Rolodex of speakers, and I reached out to people individually first, and everybody said yes. But there was one conversation that I had, and I really don't know how to provide the individual feedback. I haven't yet, because I need to put some more thought into this. But how do I say this? Their answer was no. And the reason it was no was because it didn't pay. Mind you, the travel expenses were paid. The resort stay for 3 days was paid for. Food accommodated for. None of us who are traveling will have to come out of pocket. They didn't know how large the audience was, and I wasn't going to share that information with them. I just needed to hear yes. Right. And they said no. And they said they're tired of speaking and not getting paid. There's so many opportunities that we miss out on. And I did this, unfortunately, in the beginning of my career, where I needed to know all the answers before I said yes. Well, my friends, there's going to be times where you just have to say yes. Right. And then the answers will come. As it relates to speaking, what allowed me to change my mindset was, I just want to make a positive change on one person's life per day for the rest of my life. So if I go speak to at an event, they tell me there's going to be 100 people there and 20 people show up, I'm not discouraged, because I could probably close half the room, right? And I'm not getting paid to do what I want. If you're planning on speaking, if you haven't been doing this for at least 5 years, more often times than not, you're not going to get paid. The other thing is, when I looked at certain people's, actually one individual's Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook and website or Google Images, there weren't any images of them speaking, right? So one can't, I'm not going to say you, but one can't ask for $1 million, and I'm just going to use large superfluous numbers. Yet they haven't spent much money on development of their business, development of themselves. Somebody asked me the other day, Dom, how did you get to where you're at now in such a short period of time? I left corporate in July of 2017. Here we are, June of 2018. And my first response was, I don't know. But then I had to think about it, because I really wanted to give this individual an answer. And one of my previous supervisors, directors, whatever you want to call them, her phrase was, just be the obvious choice. So the moment I decided in my mind to become a professional speaker, I looked at people like Tony Robbins and John Maxwell and Eric Thomas and Les Brown. And the first thing I noticed is that they all have a book. So I wrote a book. Then I noticed that many of them are on YouTube. So I started a YouTube channel. Then I noticed that they're pretty active on Instagram and Facebook, basically social media. So I became very active, and they're active by way of videos. So I started doing a lot of videos. All I had was my phone. I didn't have much. I mean, I have lights now. I probably have more cameras than I need, and the microphones and the lavalier mics and all that jazz. But it didn't happen overnight. And then I created a syllabus I started following the greats. Not there yet, but when you just put your head down and just keep pushing forward and engaging and staying dialed in. I heard of a quote or a phrase. It's an acronym for focus. It's follow one course of action until successful. Okay. That makes complete sense. Like, follow one course of action until successful. I know we get caught up in all this energy that we spend throughout the day, but what are we doing? Like at the end of the day, are you able to put food on your table? Right. And that's, I'm not doing what I do for money, but if many of you have met my wife, I can't do this for free, right? She'll put me in a chokehold and make me scream uncle. But I'm asking you this, are you overwhelmed or are you under pressured? When you stop saying I'm overwhelmed and you look at it from a standpoint of whether you think it's God, whatever being you think, whatever the earth, whatever you think it is, and really apply it to your life and say, you know what? All this weight is put on my shoulders. I'm going to pick one thing to conquer at a time. Right? I don't do a 3 to 5 year plan. I do a 3 to 5 hour plan. So I wake up. What am I going to do for the next 3 hours? Probably going to get up, go to the gym, go for a run, maybe get some breakfast unless I'm intermittent fasting. And I'll probably read, give my wife a hug and a kiss before she goes to work and pray with her and then go on. That's 3 hours. What am I doing for the next 3 hours? Well, I'm going to do a podcast, which I'm doing now. And then I'm going to work on some content for a mastermind that I have on Monday, right? If you just chunk your day into 3 hours, at the end of the day, you'll have so many wins that you'll find that process or that strategy, to create success in your life. And success again is not monetary. It's a feeling. So I just wanted to talk about being overwhelmed, because I think so many of us say that we're overwhelmed. But if you think of things that you've overcome in the past, it took you being overwhelmed to gain success. So something to think about there. Again, my name is Dom Faussette. This will be repurposed for YouTube. You can follow me there, youtube.com/Think React Lead, Instagram Dom Faussette and Think React Lead. And all of you have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you soon. Okay, bye-bye.
You've been listening to Think, React, Lead. To connect with your authentic purpose, contact Dom at www.thinkreactlead.com.